Hey friend, welcome to the Badass is the New Black podcast, where our motto is done is better than perfect. I'm Chrissy Chin, here on a mission to help you grow your business online, turn your leads into lifelong customers, and scale to six figures and beyond so you can work less and enjoy and earn a whole lot more. Most importantly, I'm a laid-back wife, a mom, a friend who started as a peds nurse, turned network marketer, and now a serial entrepreneur. This podcast is for ambitious people with an idea, a vision, but no idea how to get there. On this podcast, I'll give actionable steps to keep you moving forward while you learn new business strategies, better systems and processes, marketing, sales, all the things you need to build and scale a blissful business that keeps your pocketbooks growing. Grab a beverage, open up your notes app, and let's get to it. What's up? It's Chrissy and Claire today on the podcast. I brought Claire back on, if you don't know, my sister, my business partner in all the things, to chat about the recent retreat that we went to. This is going to be a super casual conversation. Maybe it'll sound like you are eavesdropping on a conversation as we just debrief, talk about our experience. A couple episodes ago, I threw out there that I was going on this retreat with Claire to support an amazing Insta friend at the time, Ashley Gordon, who was speaking at a summit, and she was hosting a retreat for women. And I jumped on the opportunity. I wanted to meet her in person. We've connected through social media for such a long time. I met her originally in a mastermind, to give you a little context, but everything was virtual. And I just really wanted to meet her in person. I knew that she would draw in just an amazing group of women, and I was not wrong, right, Claire?
Not at all, no.
Yeah, these women were just fantastic. And so, part of me is a little bit nervous to talk about it because I don't know that I can really do it justice in words, like to really tell you enough about it to share my true experience with it. So I hope that, I don't know what you'll get from this, but if anything, maybe it'll make you excited to attend a retreat one day, because maybe you'll be as transformed as we are.
Or Ashley's next retreat.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. So Ashley's really into manifestation. Her podcast is Badass Manifester. And so I knew that there would be, some spiritual and energy stuff. I didn't really know to the extent that it would be, but I was pleasantly surprised, let's just say. Mm-hmm. We started the retreat off with a cacao ceremony. I had never done one. Had you, Claire?
Not a cacao ceremony. I used to bake with cacao. Like I would use them as so I was familiar with it, but I didn't understand necessarily where this ritual comes from. And the whole thing around it was very new to me.
Well, the cacao that we did was a bean. Did you?
Yeah. So it's a cacao nib. So it's what cocoa is made out of.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is why we all had.
And I'm still like, what did we do?
Yeah. So, and I'll just explain this just a little bit for those of you who don't know, and what we learned while we were there. The cacao is from Guatemala, and it's an ancestral cacao that we sipped on. So it was almost like kind of a bitter hot chocolate. So it wasn't any psychedelics or anything, but it was really just these women of grandmother lineages cook this cacao with love, and they pray over it, and they really put this warm, I would almost say even a feminine energy into this. And so, as you drink it, that energy you get to sort of participate in or absorb or whatever it might be. So it's a really interesting experience of really being conscientious of what's going in your body, how it's nourishing you, and how it was created can be a positive thing for you with love and all that good stuff. So it was a really interesting, cool experience to look at that in a new perspective, for sure.
Yeah, we all wore white or light colors to the ceremony, which Lauren, who was kind of running this opening ceremony, had requested. I'll share Insta links and all of that, so you guys can go follow these girls because they're just fantastic and amazing. But it was just really cool to set the intention for the weekend and like get into that space of like really turning internally, I think, and just thinking about like, why are we here? What do we want to get out of this? And like each being able to own our energy. We'll get into that and talk about that. That was a big theme this weekend. And just get out of the experience what we wanted. I thought it was really cool. She had drums and little maraca like rattles. And so we just kind of really got in this space and place of kind of going back to ancestral, how women would gather, and just, she was like, women would howl and we would play music and we would just be together. And so, we were kind of simulating some of that. And I'm a singer, but I get shy about singing in front of people. And I was just like singing, like letting it go. It felt like such a safe and open space. Like it was really cool. And I don't know how to really like explain it more to where people can get this feeling of just women just dancing and being open and feeling free about not caring what other people thought or if people were looking at them. Like it just felt really safe.
Yeah. I think that's so easy to forget that like child in you that just like doesn't care about what's happening. They do their own thing. And so it was a really good reminder to just kind of like let it go and literally do whatever you want in that space and know that there was no judgment or, no one's eyes on you. They were all doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, loved that. Love that. Anything else you want to share about the ceremony part before we move into like what day 2 was?
No, I mean, it really set the tone. It allowed everyone to kind of get to know each other in this really unique way. And of course, we went around and did all of our intentions. So it was such a great way to just like kick it off. Loved it.
Yeah. And being able to, at the end, it was that ceremony, right? Where we could, at the end, we put our hands in the rose water and then we grabbed, it was a rose quartz crystal, right?
Yeah.
And so we got to use that to set our intention to the crystal. And we grabbed a card. I don't even know what the deck was called.
I think it was I feel like when I read it, it said steer. It is a tarot card, like a steer deck, but I don't really know what that means. I don't know much about
it. It was super cool. Like, and I haven't done a ton with tarot cards, but just like pulling that card and then reading in the book, about it, it just felt like so on point for me.
Yeah, same. And everyone had a different card. When I pulled my rose quartz out, I like dropped it and it landed on the card. I was like, well, that card just chose me. And it was so on point.
And just getting into the space of like leading with intuition, right? Like trusting, right? Trusting that rock fell on that card that you were supposed to pick. And like, there was no overthinking, no second guessing. Right. And so it just felt so freeing to live for me in that space of like, what card am I supposed to pick? Should it be this one or that? I was like, no, just like put your hand down, grab something, or like, oh, the rock fell. Like that's the one that's for me. And they were so on point for us. So love that. Day 2 was business. We won't share anyone's personal stories. It's confidential for what happened, but my takeaway that I wanted to share with everyone on the podcast was that it was a business retreat, but because Ashley is so spiritual, there was so much spirituality mixed into it. So day 2 was opening up the opportunity for us all to talk about our businesses, right? Like, what is your goal? Like, what's your big goal? And then what kind of digging deeper to like, what's holding you back? And I loved this question. What do you need to let go of in order to reach your goal? And it got so much deeper than, I just need to stop doing this project so I can do this one. For me, it was more so that, needing to let go of this rushness, this feelings of like, I have to rush everything. Oh, it has to be done now. Oh, I want to write a book and I want to do my own summit and we want to do our own retreat. And we have to, clean up this system and process so that it can run smoothly, and like feeling like it all needs to happen in the next few weeks. Like, how are we going to get it done? Like just letting go of the rushness and feeling like everything has to get done right now to allow myself to actually get done what I want to get done. And so for me, that's writing this book. by the end of the year, I have a great opportunity to work with Amelia. I've had her on the podcast before. And so I really want to do that. And so just putting off, so I wanted to do a summit as well, like a live in-person summit. And my kind of takeaway after even this whole weekend was that, this is my time to let that go and trust that over this year, maybe even next year, like this is the time where I'm meeting the people I'm supposed to meet that are going to be standing on that stage. Mm-hmm. Right. And it will come when it needs to come. Yeah. Others, it was very really internal and realizing maybe they had relationship conflicts that were getting in the way or like causing these subconscious thoughts, holding them back. And I think the takeaway also that I want to point out is that business is so much more than just like some business strategy. Like it's often those super inner deep things that are really what's holding us back. And that's why I think personal development is so important. That's why, I've loved like having the mindset coaching that we've done, Claire, and, all of these other things, because it's really when you do work on yourself, you can make transformations in your business. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, two major thoughts. If anyone out there has a business partner, this experience with Chrissy was probably one of the most transformational things for our business, I think will be moving forward. I tapped into some things that I have ignored and haven't worked through and haven't shared with Chrissy for fear of disappointment, guilt, letting her down, all these things, and being able to enter a space with a lot of these girls were coaches as well. Almost all of them.
Right. So you listened to a couple episodes before. The first episode was a snippet from Ashley and I having an interview, and then the second part of the interview on her coaching. So Ashley coaches people how to be coaches with her Quantum Coaching Academy. So, right. So some people were in her academy, and then other people had just been following her for a long time through Instagram. And I had met her in the mastermind. So yes, so many of these girls were coaches.
And so all of them were so great at holding space, giving. It's so easy in interpersonal communication and Ashley talked about this a little bit in her summit, to want to fix someone when they're talking about their struggles, or want to give a comparative story to show them that you relate in some way, and not giving them the space to just realize their own stuff. And so it was really amazing to sit in a space with these girls who every single one of them just held space for you to figure out what it was that was holding you back, or keeping you from moving forward in your path, and whether it was career or personal. And so I learned a lot about where I sit and the things holding me back, just because they gave me the space to just figure it out. I don't know if I'm really communicating this the way that translates, but that experience with other coaches who were just so respectful of, allowing you to talk it through, and asking questions that weren't, close-ended. So you could really just like sit and think, and then, sit there for literally maybe a minute and just be like, it was therapy.
It totally was therapy. And that's why I'm kind of like, every business owner needs to find their therapist, whether it's, someone who's of a more spiritual nature, or someone who's a therapist, or someone who's a mindset coach. Like all of that internal work to me is like therapy. Loved that people, and these are words Ashley uses. So it really kind of brought them into my vocabulary, was holding space. Right. Just holding that space. And a few words that I can't get out of my head that she said, and, kind of laying the ground rules, which I thought was great, was like, we're going to hold the space for people. But she said, we're not going to rescue anyone. Like if people start crying, we're not going to rescue them. We're not going to like run over and try and hug them. Like we're just going to hold the space for them to be and like work through it. on their own and figure it out. You know, we're here to support them. So I thought that was really interesting and fascinating, this feeling and this need to rescue people, to make it better, right, for them. And that's not often what people need. They need to work through it.
Yeah. I don't have a group of friends that are big huggers. And so there have been times where I've been having conversations or they've been struggling or crying. And I'll ask, like, do you want a hug? And so I think I subconsciously, because of the dynamic, subconsciously have worked on that, but not always. Or maybe that's just because I'm not necessarily someone who just like immediately wants like an out of the blue hug. But yeah, it's such an important thing, I think, to like get permission. Like she even said, you know, ask permission to even engage. Like, can I ask you something? Or, you know, like really being respectful of communication and allowing people to say no. Like if someone shared something and you say, can I ask you a question? They're like, I mean, I don't know that many of us would say no because we were so open in that space. Right. We wanted to hear
or
the
like,
question.
Can I share something with you? Or can I share a story with you? Like sometimes it can be appropriate to share a story. And there was a moment where it was appropriate for me to share a story. But I asked permission first, like, can I share a story with you? And so just getting that permission to do that and be there. I thought was really powerful. You mentioned like just sitting there with like a minute of silence. You know, there's definitely, I don't remember if there was like a what it was called, but like people who just want to like, they can't have that silence. Like they need to fill the space. So if anyone that you're talking with just kind of pauses, it's like you're like, oh gosh, I have to interject something. So there's not like this awkward pause, but really, and I remember doing mindset coaching, like that's kind of where the transformation happens when Brandon would just kind of sit there and I would say something and I would stop and he would sit there and just kind of wait.
Yeah.
And then and then I would go a little deeper, right? Like, okay, he's not saying anything, so I'm going to explore more. And that's really where the rawness came out, right? That's really where you got down to the deep, like, oh my gosh, like maybe it's coming from here. Or like the feelings like, why am I feeling that way? Like now I constantly ask myself, and I did this before, you know, okay, why am I feeling that way? If something makes me upset, you know, why am I feeling that way? If I start getting defensive, why am I getting defensive?
Yeah.
Right. Because it's probably not what that other person said. It's like, it's going way back, whether it's like way back from me or way back from my ancestors that are like, you know, the energy that's flowing through me. So it's just like, just leaving that space. And if you're a coach, like that's so important. To open up that space, to hold that space for them so they can really get to the deep things. Yeah.
I mean, so often when you're in conversations with friends and they're looking for guidance, I feel like that happens with me a lot where it's like people that come to me for guidance. I don't know what energy I put out, but it's so easy to like, you ask them a question and they don't have an answer. And so you just carry on and let that be rhetorical. But in this space, I really learned that like, if they don't like, just give them the space and the time to decide whether it's going to be rhetorical or not. I mean, some people were like, that's something I have to think on. And they took that question in that space and are stepping away and internalizing it. And that's their choice. The person who's asking the question doesn't actually, the answer is not for them. It's for the person who's being asked. Right.
Yeah.
So, that was probably my favorite day of the entire retreat, really experiencing just so much respect in the room.
Yeah.
And we had, you know, and it allowed us to build relationships, to be able to have conversations outside of that experience one-on-one. I shared in my testimonial that Ashley will see that like my favorite part of the retreat was the times between. Being able to like have individual conversations independent from this like big work, and you just tap into different things. It was really cool.
Yeah. It was actually in between like the business sessions where we got to talk to Jenna.
Jenna Energy.
On Instagram, she's Jenna Energy. And I cannot wait to bring her on the podcast as long as she says yes. I think she will. But so this is where we learn this concept of like owning your energy.
Yes.
Like living, it's like, what do you do? And she's like, I own my energy. Like, yeah, but what's your business? No, that's my, like, first and foremost, to own my energy. And that way I can show up and help other people own their energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that, like, I'm going to say that all the time now. And like, ask myself, like, where's my energy at? Like, okay, I need to just own my energy in this moment. Like if I'm feeling, called to do something, like I need to own that energy. Or, if I feel, like I really just don't want to do something, like own that.
This morning I woke up, I set my alarm for 8:15, hit the snooze twice. And normally I'm like, oh, I got to get out of bed. I got to get my day started. I need to like get Lola to daycare, my dog. And just like, I'm just like thinking about all those things. And this morning I was just like, I have a call at 10 with Chrissy, and I want to spend some of today with Lola because I'm going to put her in boarding this weekend. I'm just going to like slow roll into the day, take her on a walk, and let my day start at 10 o'clock and be so happy with that. And okay, knowing that like I'm going to get a little bit more sleep, a little more relaxation. I can make some tea. I'm going to set up my day so that I'm ready to hit the ground running after this call and, tackle all the things that I need to tackle, and without guilt, without resistance, without all those things. And then, I mean, that's like a tiny little example of just being like, I don't feel like I want to get up this second. So I'm going to be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to bring Jenna on to talk more about human design, because was that the first time? No, not the first time you had heard of human design.
Yeah, you sent me a podcast on it, and I listened to some of it. So I kind of had an idea of it, but I didn't really know much.
Yeah. Same. When I listened to the podcast, I was like, oh, like this is fascinating. I always love things that are giving you more insight into,
all the personality
who you are, but like how you function, like how you think. And like, it seems weird to be like, oh, we can go. So with human design, it's kind of bizarre that you put in your birthday, the time you were born, the place you were born, and it gives you your human design. So it's like
similar to your chart, your astrology chart.
Right.
But yeah. Same concept. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm a manifesting generator. And so we won't get into details here. We'll bring Jenna back to do all of that, but that feels super, super on point for me and like who I am and how I show up. And so knowing it, the first part is knowing, so that you can then lean into it to own your energy. Like that's just who I am. It's who I was designed to be and function like at my inner core. And so trying to ignore that or act in a different way is not going to serve me. So Claire, maybe you have a better example of like your human design, and like you were trying to live not in your human design before, and I feel like this retreat opened that up for you.
Yeah. So I'm a projector, and I didn't actually even tap into and explore much of what that means. But in talking with Jenna, she put my information in and it popped up. And as I was talking to her, we were talking for probably a good hour before we even pulled that up. And I was explaining that like, I sometimes feel just so resistant to do work. Like I just don't want to do it. I've struggled in my entire career path to find something that I want to stick with and that like lights me up. And I kind of jump ship a lot, trying to figure out what it is that I want to do with my day from day to day. And I thought that I was maybe a generator just from like hearing what people were saying. And she's like, we need to explore this. And so we put my information in, and it turns out I'm a projector, which is someone who, or I guess I should just share, I'm not 100% sure like the identity of a projector, but my experience from learning this is that it's okay to not want to do work all the time. Like it's okay to prefer to like sit back, enjoy the simple things. Like she asked me, she's like, what do you like to do today? I was like, I like to like walk my dog and sit by the pool and like read a book or binge on a Netflix show. And she's like, yeah, that's okay.
She's like, yeah, you're a projector. Like you don't want to do work.
But for me, for so long, I thought that I was lazy or
Oh, that's
not putting in the work
Mm.
or not showing up successfully.
Yeah. And I remember she described, so she's a projector as well. And she, like, when you guys were talking about that, she shared like, yeah, projectors are the ones that will they could do work really efficiently in a short time, and they'll just like stretch out the work at like their corporate job to make it look like they're doing work because they can be so efficient. They could get it done in an hour, but they don't want people to look at them and think they're lazy or they're not working. And so they like stretch it out. Right.
And then you have guilt around like, I could have done that in 3 hours and it took me an 8-hour work day. Like,
right. Or guilt knowing like I have to look like I'm working. So, or, so like, things.
Yeah. I mean, I used working my like 9-to-5 corporate job, the stuff that I would do, like I would take one day to craft a marketing email and like get it ready to go out the next day. That should take maybe an hour.
Right. And it wasn't because you weren't capable. Like you actually functioned better in like the quick, but you were like,
there was only so many things on my to-do list, 5 things on my to-do list with a 5-day work week. I'm going to take those 5 days. You know what I mean? Like,
right. But so, because you weren't owning your energy, like
correct.
You weren't really understanding.
Well, the reality is I could have done that in one day and then taken 4 days off. And that's just not how corporate America works. I can't tell my boss like, hey, I finished early. I'm just going to be good for 4 days until you give me something else to do.
Yeah.
Right.
So wait, let's recap what those feelings are. So if you're someone out there that's like, ooh, I think this is me. What were those feelings that it brought up for you? Again, you said them before, but let's recap.
That I'm lazy.
And you were functioning. Okay. You felt lazy.
What did I say? I felt lazy. I felt like I don't know. I don't remember what I said. Y'all have to like go back to that. Chrissy, timestamp it.
Lazy, guilty. There might've been one
like
more.
I wasn't showing up successfully.
Yeah.
Like a lot of me would think like, and I would compare to Chrissy because she's not my human design. And so she works very differently. So I would think like, and this is a really good and very new example. If she's working all the time, she's texting me about something at 8 p.m. I would feel guilty that I'm no longer working. And the one day
guys, it's not that I'm working all the time. Okay.
No, she's not. She like,
I have ideas. I have ideas all the time.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that I love my work and, we can get into, Jenna talking about your play, like work as play. Like for me, work is play.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm always living in that space.
Yeah. But like Chrissy would send our family a picture of like her laying by the pool. The kids are playing with it at 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, oh, sweet. I get to do that sometimes when I want. Like I shouldn't give myself permission based on someone else's work ethic. I need to figure out how my day should look and how I can show up and finish the things I need to do, but then also balance it with the things I finish the things I want to do with my job.
Yeah.
I need to, and balance it with the things that that really truly bring me joy and allow me to feel like I'm living in a state of play.
Yeah. Owning your energy.
Yeah.
Love it. So you can stay tuned on that. We'll bring Jenna back to talk about owning your energy and human design. So you can get a little bit handled, but you could go look up human design and get an idea of what you're at. So that was day 2. Day 3 was the summit. Ashley crushed it.
Yeah, she
crushed it. Not surprised. so that was that day. And then we got to just kind of have our own time. We went down to New Haven and checked out the town, just 4 of us. And it was a great little dinner that we had, came back. I don't remember what we did in the evening. And then Sunday was content creation day.
Yeah.
And so that was, being a business retreat, what do we all struggle with and need more of? content.
Yeah.
So it was great. Like in the price for the retreat, it was built in to have access to a photographer, professional photographer, a videographer. Like video is huge, you guys. So that was just really, really cool. We each got a half an hour to be with the photographer and the videographer. So Claire and I did a lot of stuff together. So technically we had an hour. It was funny because they were like, we were having these ideas and us knowing like we had an hour, they didn't realize. And so there's like, that sounds great, but why don't we're going to have time, right? Like we have 5 minutes. And I was like, oh, no, like we have an hour. They're like, oh, okay. So that was just fun and cool to do. We had done a photo shoot recently and it took me a while to like warm up and get into like my fun, playful energy to bring that through on the camera. So knowing, that experience, and it was like, okay, it took me a bit to warm up, and knowing we only had, an hour for us, I was like, all right, we got to like speed this up. So I just really tried to channel like owning my true authentic energy right from the get-go and not being super shy and embarrassed of like what I might do. Just like, all right, just time to own my energy. Like I've got this slot. We don't have time to like double think it or, overthink it. So I feel like I was able to get in a good space for.
Well, and the videographer and photographer were so great that like we told them what we did for a living and some ideas. And they were just like, they just directed. It was fantastic.
Yeah. That's what I think is, and this is just a tip for photographer. If you're getting a photographer or videographer, like find someone who's going to help with the ideas and direct, right? Direct what's happening. Cause you might have an idea, but it just might not translate very well. And like, they know their craft, right? To know like, will that translate on video or have ideas? So when you're looking for someone, ask them like, how are you with directing, what's supposed to happen? Or are you just going to be waiting for me to tell you what to record? So you really want to look for someone who's going to help in that creative process because they know what it's going to look like on camera and have ideas. So that was super fun. And then in between time, like when not in our hour, we were able to be like backup people. Like I got to hone into some acting skills and like play a podcaster, for someone else who was doing a video who needed an example of something else. So it was just like this really fun collaborative experience of like helping everyone just get some great content to be able to have to share what their gifts are to the world to help everyone, going back. We did some fun reels that like literally took us, 20 tries, like, but we had so much fun.
We did
doing it. It was just such a blast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to move on to what we did. Did you have any more to talk about for the content creation?
No, that was it. And then we did the closing ceremony.
Yeah.
You can share about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, that was the last full day. Everyone else kind of either left like late at night or early in the morning, or at checkout on Monday. So the last day after content creation, we had like there was a chef there the entire time.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh. We could not forget to mention Kat's Kitchen.
I know.
Kathy, who was
fantastic. We had some vegan eaters, some gluten-free, dairy-free, and she accommodated everyone. And all of the food was fantastic. Our last dinner, we had like a nice sit down dinner with everyone, and the photographer and videographer stayed for it and
for the sound healing. So we had a sound healing.
No. Well, for dinner too. Yeah. So like, it was just like the whole crew, we just kept collecting people, bringing them into our circle. And then they all stayed for the sound healing. So we had a sound healer come in. It was singing bowls and it was called an ocean drum, and she brought in a gong, and we all just like settled into the space, laid down, and
it looked like a giant slumber party.
Yeah.
Like, how fun was that? I felt like I was a child.
Yeah.
Like having a slumber party, made beds. Like I think it was Micah who went and got like the couch cushions. Like I think she was like, she got them for Andrew. Someone did. And like everyone got pillows. People are going to get their comforters off of beds if there weren't enough blankets. And like, it looked like just a giant slumber party, like ready to settle in and like close your eyes. Although I didn't close my eyes. We'll talk about that. Like for the next hour for the sound healing.
Yeah. So, had us all go around and set our intentions for, that night, and maybe taking with us after the retreat. So we all did that. And then we like closed our eyes and chilled out. And she played some instruments.
So that was my first time doing that. So she had background. It was like bird sounds, was so beautiful. And then played all these different instruments, a rain stick and some bell of some kind, that ocean drum, the singing bowls, the gong. So she played different stuff. And I had never done a sound healing to that capacity before. And I couldn't keep my eyes closed. I was like, trying to lay there and relax. Like we sold it. I like just had to keep opening my eyes for whatever reason. Like I just felt more comfortable with them open.
Yeah.
And then when she did the ocean drum, when she picked that up, it's like this really loud, like pretty loud rushing sound, right? So it's supposed to sound like an ocean. For
it's
me,
like
it
this
sounded
square thing with a bunch of balls in it, and she would kind of like move them around. So it's just like, imagine this like loud sort of cyclical.
Or like some people described it as a storm, like sounding like a storm. And for me, the first time hearing it, it brought up a lot of like anxiety. Mm-hmm. I'm not a super anxious person, but I just felt like, oh my gosh, like that feels like too much. Like it feels like too much. So I was getting that feeling. And over time, it definitely calmed down. But I was definitely expecting a really relaxing hour. And for me, it was like, I had to keep my eyes open. And a lot of other people we shared after, like, how was the experience? Because it was new for a lot of people. And a lot of people shared, like, I was really restless.
I was.
Like kept moving around. And so she just talked about how, a lot of times your first time, or when you have a lot of energy moving through, like you can get that way. So that doesn't mean like every time, next time is going to be like that, but like getting those energies moving with the vibrations and the sounds was like stirring up a lot for people, which was interesting.
Yeah. When it comes to meditation, for me, I'm horrible at it. I can't shut my brain off. I struggle to really find like stillness. And I did a Gong meditation years ago, and it was very powerful. It was almost like the gong sound enveloped me so much that I didn't even have the option to think. Mm-hmm. And I was like, in that moment, I was thirsty for that, but also probably not what I needed. I probably needed to work through meditation in a different way, to practice it a little differently. And someone described the sound healer as like very fairy-like, it was very soft, and she kind of like went back and forth from instruments and never played anything very loudly. There was like one singing bowl that I really gravitated towards, which is funny because it was actually the sacral chakra bowl. And then I did another energy healing thing afterwards that night. And the sacral chakra is my strongest one. So I was like, of course I'm drawn to that one. Now, of course that one is like the one that I wanted to hear, but I just like wanted to keep hearing that. And then there were some that I was like, oh, I don't like that. I don't want to hear that one again. So yeah, it was really interesting. It wasn't just like, oh, let's relax and listen to some singing bowls. It was like, let's actually work through some things, like one more opportunity to kind of work through internalizing internal stuff.
Yeah, it was super powerful.
Yeah.
That was fun. I did sleep well that night though. I do remember that.
Same.
That was great. And then the next morning, some people had left that evening. And then the next morning we had a great breakfast made by Kathy, and some people left early. We stayed up pretty late talking. It was great. Just the bonds that we created with these women. It was like, definitely we were all brought to that retreat for a purpose. Right. And just solidifying that everything that I'm doing is for a purpose. And I've always said that everything happens for a reason, but this just even more so, like, the people that were there, the connections that were built, like it's almost seemed like we all just really, really needed it. So just trusting yourself. Some girls didn't, they like signed up and then they were scared to come. One girl shared that she walked into the house and was like, I shouldn't be here. Like, I need to leave. And she stayed and just had the most transformational weekend. and if she hadn't been there, I wouldn't have been touched in certain ways. I know you wouldn't have been if, Courtney wasn't there. So, just so much support and love. And yeah, it was just good. This is why I'm like, I don't think my words can like express how impactful and powerful it was. So you guys just have to go to retreat.
Yeah.
But Claire and I got so many ideas like, ooh, what could we do for a retreat, and bringing this, experience. It won't be exactly the same because, there's no way to replicate that, but it will be just as impactful and powerful because it will be exactly what our people that show up, what they need. Right. So
Yes.
good. Any last thoughts before we just close it out? Before we close it out, like a retreat and set our intention for the day moving forward.
No, not
We should
really.
have done that before this episode. We should take a deep breath and set our intention.
I know. Not really. I mean, I feel honored to have experienced it. And some of it was kind of validating. Like I've been doing some personal work independently and having these conversations with these girls. Well, I did have some revelations and work through some things I haven't been working on, which we talked about earlier. Some of the stuff was actually, and more spiritual stuff was really validating that like the work I'm doing is actually, it's serving a purpose and it's helping me show up in my best self, best light. So yeah, it was a really cool experience.
Cool. Love it. Well, that's it, guys. You got the insider scoop on the weekend. We want to thank Ashley for putting the retreat together, holding space, and everyone else for holding space for us, for Claire and I, to deepen our relationship, our partnership, our real life sisterhood. I love that Micah, like a couple days in, she was like, wait, you guys are sisters? she missed the memo. Like not soul sisters. Like we all kept calling each other soul sisters. Like, no, we're actually sisters.
Yeah.
So it was just fun. Thank you guys so much for just being there to support us. It was just magical. And Claire and I hope that one day we can, for you out there listening, that we can bring and open a space for you as well, to hold the space for you, to allow you to open up and get vulnerable and make transformational shifts in your world that will not only be transformational for your business, but for your life. So that's what we hope. That is my intention moving forward, is to, keep doing what I'm doing, keep owning my energy so that you can live in yours. In the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, in the descriptor below, I'm going to share a link with you that's going to give you the opportunity to put your name on a list for one of mine and Claire's retreats that we have set the intention to bring to you so that you can get the information when that happens. I would also be curious to know, what of these pieces that we experienced would you love to see on a retreat hosted by us? So, an opening ceremony that Lauren did with us with the Cacao Ceremony. Would you love to have a private chef that makes you feel pampered and is feeding you delicious, healthy food? Would you love to have a sound healing ceremony or a content creation day with a videographer and a photographer, or a space to dive deep into your business? So I'll give you the opportunity, if you click that link, to share what of these pieces that we talked about would you love to see at a retreat that Claire and I host. I'm also going to share in the show notes a picture of our entire group, and I'm going to tag all of them or add their Instagram handles so you can go find these amazing, genuine, loving, and caring women and man, Andrew, the videographer, to continue to follow them and give them support and learn from them, is what I'm most excited about. You learning from them as much as I learned from them. So I'm going to leave all of that in the show notes. If you're on YouTube, of course, you'll get the link to the show notes and that link to tell us if you're interested in a retreat in the future. All right. Thank you. We'll see you later. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you got some value out of this episode, I would love some support. And the best way to do that, so I can keep showering you with loads of actionable tips, is to hit that subscribe button. Leave a review or a comment if you're on YouTube, and share this podcast with a friend. And when you share it with a friend on social, please tag me so I can reshare your share in my stories. It's been an absolute pleasure hanging out. I appreciate the heck out of you for showing up. And now it's time for you to take imperfect action so you can work less and enjoy and earn a whole lot more.